A lovely evening to you out there, and welcome to Nationwide on the Network service of the NTA. I am Noleen Abel-Ameh with the news. President Muhammadu Buhari has made a strong case for Nigerians to desist from actions and comments that are inimical to the stability and prosperity of the country, whose strength lies in her diversity. He said Nigerians' unity has been achieved at great cost and must therefore be guarded jealously by the citizenry. The president was speaking at the launch of the 2021 Armed Forces Remembrance Day Emblem and Appeal Fund, during which he donated 10 million naira in support of the war veterans as well as dependents of fallen heroes. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
In the sacrifices of the nation's fallen heroes and veterans of the various world wars, the Nigerian Civil War, as well as peace support operations, the launch of the Emblem Appeal Fund is also an opportunity to pay tribute to the men and women currently engaged in the battle against terrorism, insurgency, and armed banditry in parts of the country. President Muhammadu Buhari said despite the coronavirus pandemic, these gallant officers and soldiers remained steadfast in the task of restoring peace and national security.
The nation remains grateful for the efforts and sacrifice of the armed forces, especially in the fight against insurgency and other internal security challenges confronting Nigeria. The unfortunate cost of the fight against insurgency and other internal security challenges is the unavoidable loss of lives of some of our officers and men of the armed forces. The reality is that the spouses and defendants of these breadwinners in most cases experience trauma and deprivation. I therefore call on all to spare a thought for them and take positive steps to come to their aid.
While pledging his continued support and that of the federal government to the Nigerian Legion, the president called on Nigerians and other residents in Nigeria to procure and wear the emblems with pride in order to identify with those who laid down their lives for the peace and security of the country. He also made a case for business enterprises to render discounts and rebates to the men and women in uniform as a symbol of appreciation for their sacrifices to the nation. The gesture, he said, will make life easier for them as well as deepen their patriotism.
We are quite aware that it is our responsibility to provide a conducive environment that is devoid of security threats. I want to reassure Nigerians that security, being one of the pillars of this administration, will continue to be at the forefront until peace and security are restored in the country. We will create an environment in which Nigerians and foreigners are guaranteed freedom and returns on investment.
The president described as pleasing that a lot has been achieved in the internal security operations in parts of the country, which led to the return of normalcy, saying government will continue to forge useful alliances towards ensuring total defeat of the security threats affecting the West African sub-region. Defense Minister Bashir Magashi assured the nation that the potentials of the ex-servicemen are enormous and can be leveraged on for national development.
Let us identify with those who daily make sacrifices, including laying their lives for peace and security in our fatherland.
Mr. President, you have cleaned the tears from all the faces of religions. You have paid everything that should be paid in terms of pensions. We don't even have to think about it. Thank you so much, sir.
The Armed Forces Remembrance Day will be marked on January 15 with wreath-laying ceremonies at the various cenotaphs of the unknown soldier across Nigeria to commemorate the end of the Nigerian Civil War. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says engagement with the Nigerian youth has to be transparent and honest in order to build a progressive society and nation. This, as explained by the Vice President, was why the implementation of the Buhari administration's social investment programs were not done on the basis of sharing slots between public officials or political chieftains, but in a manner whereby Nigerians who knew no one could benefit and did benefit. Vice President Osinbajo stated this on Tuesday when he received the Executive Committee of the Young Parliamentarians Forum led by its chairman, Karu Simon Elisha from Kebbi State. Acknowledging that there are indeed important issues to be addressed, while noting the crucial place of youth in building a successful nation, the Vice President said the youth are not just demography, but they are in the majority, stating that the government must find a way for them to be represented as effectively as possible. He welcomed the support of the House of Representatives members for the newly formed National Economic Council Committee, set up to interface with youth and other stakeholders on issues of employment, social safety nets, and national unity. Leader of the delegation, Honorable Elisha, commended the Vice President's sincere interaction with the youth over the years, and especially in the wake of the NSAS protest across the country, and called for improved interaction between youth and leaders at all levels. Dealing with social media excesses is one of the major factors affecting many communities in the world and currently attracting concerns of key players in information and communications cycle to secure the online space against explosive contents that could degenerate to avoidable crises. In Nigeria, the scenario of falsehood and inciting materials played out during the NSAS protest, plunging the nation into monumental losses. Abubakar Usman Akwanga says this was the focus of guests on NTA's current affairs program, Tuesday Live.
In the wake of NSAS protests, Nigerians suffered consequences of falsehoods and hate content from the social media space, with unverifiable and inflammable messages spilling violence across major cities, with massive looting and destruction of public and private assets. This state of normlessness, many believed was avoidable, lasted for about 3 weeks and triggered a major shake-up in the realm of information, with untidy and untrue stories sprouting on the social media platforms to create wrong impression of happenings and preach hate and incite citizens against each other.
Nothing called professionalism, there's nothing called gatekeeping processes, and the producer himself is not in any way a professional, it's just a quack, sometimes masquerading either as a blogger or as a journalist.
Guests say governments at all levels should leverage on relevant laws and formulate policy frameworks to regulate activities of multitude online users who abuse the media ethics to influence negative practices for unspecified reasons. The menace of fake news and misinformation occupied minds of guests and profile solutions on how to engage youth to explore enormous potentials inherent in the social media space.
The strategy for regulating the social media, especially for hate crime, which is where much of the focus is, because hate crime has collateral damage in terms of mobilizing people to commit hate crimes. Hate speech can lead to even war, can lead to genocide, ethnic cleansing. So the focus has been to ensure that platforms that can broadcast, attract.
This is something that is not untrue. being presented as true, being presented as news. And that is why you see that the concept of it itself, it gives you about 3 different concepts of fake news. One is about disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation.
Sure. As stakeholders are sustaining conversation on ways to decongest the social media space with unnecessary items and promote best media ethics, it is expected that the essentials of social media will not be compromised. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
While calling for an end to the looting of public and private properties across the country, the police say they have commenced investigations into the incidents and perpetrators will be prosecuted. While some guests on Good Morning supports punitive measures against the looters, others say dialogue and reconciliation is the way to go in bringing lasting solution and peace to the country. These issues and more were raised while discussing NSAS protests and suing for peace. Alika Okwanachi-Arua reports.
Towards putting a final end to the NSAS protests and avoiding future reoccurrence, guests on Good Morning Nigeria says all hands must be on deck. They emphasize the need for stakeholders to set up committees and dialogue platforms at all levels of government to address the situation and provide immediate solutions.
Imagine some police officers, tires put on their head, and they lit fire on them. What you do to criminals, doing it to security men who risk their lives and their family members to ensure that there is security, that there is peace in the system. It was quite appalling.
This is religiously acceptable. When you go into an act of criminality, the Quran says you must be dealt with, because that is the only way it will deter others from doing it.
They appealed to the youths and the general public to do away with all acts of criminality and embrace peace by coming forward with a looted item within as soon as possible to avoid arrest and punishment.
The youths have been offended. There are genuine reasons to be angry, but our help comes from God, not from men. And we must therefore trust God to give us a better Nigeria.
Let us, as a nation, get some fundamentals that we deal with the specific situation we have found ourselves, whereby people acknowledge that they all had wronged each other.
In terms of giving information to the police, it's not only coming directly or coming to the station directly to give information. These days, technology has made it so easy that you could also just phone, call, and give whatever information you want. It's our responsibility to pick it, filter the information you've given us, and utilize accordingly.
They were also of the opinion that for the public to stop seeing the police as the enemy, there must be synergy between the police and the public. In Abuja, Alika Okwanachi-Arua, NTA News.
Time now to join Awal in Lagos Network Center for more on Nationwide. Nice to meet you, Awal.
Thank you, Noleen. Nice to meet you too. Commuters in Lagos now spend hours on the road as a result of few commercial buses operating within the metropolis. Abolade Salami reports that most bus operators have increased their fares by 10%.
Thank you, Studio. The situation out here is not palatable, as most commuters said to us that it is very, very difficult to get a bus to move them from point A to point B. Some said to us that they've been here for close to 30 minutes, some 45 minutes, and as a result, they had to trek meters to see if they would be able to get a commercial bus to move them to their destination. Afolayan, please talk to me. Where are you coming from?
Transport has been very, very mad. Like Lagos these days, everywhere has been hectic. There's no transport. We've been trekking. You can see my bag. I've been trekking down all the way from 1 kilometer down here.
The ever-busy TBS Motor Park was almost a shadow of itself, while the Falomo underbridge in Ikoyi had little or no passengers. The only vehicle we saw operating there were private cars who came to the rescue of stranded passengers.
No sufficient vehicle. If it was there when we have keke, I would have taken keke, dropped there, then from there I pass where I'm going to.
But what's the situation now?
The situation is kind of critical, I won't lie. is critical because we don't have sufficient vehicles on the road again like it used to be before.
The very spot I'm standing on, usually is always a beehive. But as you can see from my rear, we have just few commuters waiting for buses. And this is not unconnected with the uncertainty that hoodlums might still attack in Lagos. Abolade Salami, NTA News.
With normalcy gradually being restored to Lagos following the wanton destruction of lives and property, the Southwest Caucus of the Nigerian Senate has paid a condolence visit to Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Nosausula reports that the visit afforded the lawmakers the opportunity of assessing the gravity of damage to socio-economic activities in the state.
The senators, led by Senator Ajayi Borofis, representing Ondo North, said the Senate would urge the federal government to assist Lagos State financially to cushion the effects of damages done by hoodlums.
Both those who are in governance and those who are out of governance will all have a role to play to ensure that this country moves forward.
Meanwhile, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu also read a riot act to miscreants and hoodlums in Lagos, urging them to be law-abiding and peaceful or face the full wrath of the law.
If you know that you are not doing any work and that you are one of the people that has caused this trouble, we are giving you the final note because we are coming to clear this whole place. We are coming to clear this whole place. We will make sure that you do not disturb or embarrass peace-loving neighborhood that we have here.
In Lagos, Nusa Osula, NTA News.
Still on the aftermath of the NSAS protest, 520 suspects alleged to have taken part in series of arson, vandalism, burglary, and robbing members of the public of their valuables during the hijacked NSAS protest have been arrested in Lagos. The State Commissioner of Police Hakeem Odumosu revealed while briefing the press at the command's headquarters in Ikeja. Nosausula again reports.
While stating the facilities affected in the state, the Commissioner of Police stated that the command swung into action and was able to recover some of the stolen items and arrested the perpetrators.
Yes, from my own, it's true. Inside where? ShopRite for Body Thomas. Carry what does not belong to us.
Where you get the uniform from?
No, I know where uniform. Now like this and tell me OPC 9 catch me. OPC 9 catch me.
The Commissioner of Police assured residents that the arrested suspects would be charged to court.
Thorough investigation into the cases has commenced. Members of the public should be rest assured that progresses of this will be put in public domain. I'd like to appreciate officers and men of this command for their doggedness, their gallantry, and commitment to maintain law and order and restoration of normalcy to the state.
Odumosu urged residents to be law-abiding and continue to cooperate with the police. In Lagos, Nusa Osula, NTA News.
As Lagosians continue to take stock of the damages left behind by the violence caused by the NSAS protests, the inability of tanker drivers to move petroleum products out of the metropolis is beginning to bite harder across cities in the country, especially the Federal Capital Territory. Although Lagos is not experiencing any scarcity, but joining us live via Zoom to speak on this development is the chairman, Lagos State Chapter of the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, Comrade Tayo Aboyeji. Hello, Comrade. Thank you for joining us. So, Comrade, can you tell us what is the current situation in terms of distribution of petroleum products across the country, especially the Federal Capital Territory? We seem to be having some technical problems there. This is NTA Nationwide. More reports with Noleen in Abuja.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women.
Thank you for staying with us on the Nationwide. There is no scarcity of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, in the country, and Nigerians should stop panic buying of the product. This is the position of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, at the seminar organized by the Bureau of Public Service Reform in Abuja. Adebola Brucelin Sunday reports.
For several decades, the petroleum sector has been a major driver of Nigeria's economy. This edition of monthly launch seminar by the Bureau is coming at a time consumers of petrol are panic buying as a result of non-availability of the product in many filling stations.
I'm sure we are all aware the custom building was burnt. We are aware that Lagos was in flames on Tuesday last week. And that meant that port operations were affected. It's not that we don't have products. Today, we are holding so much stock. So we are still bringing in ships. We have enough stock to last for over a week.
Director General of the Bureau, Dasuki Ibrahim Arabi, who spoke on the current reforms in the petroleum sector and their impacts on Nigeria, the role of NNPC, wants quick implementation of some proposed steps to move the petroleum sector forward.
Passage of the petroleum industry bill into law as soon as practicable, rehabilitation of the nation's 4 refineries so that they can begin to function at 100% capacity.
The forum also appreciated the President for the opportunity accorded to the Bureau to serve as the institutional platform for sustainable reform implementation and coordination in the country. Adebola Brucelin Sunday, NTA News.
Adebola is standing by in Ibadan for trending stories in that axis. Over to you, Adebola.
Thank you, Noleen. Good afternoon and welcome to Ibadan. Oyo State government has announced the setting up of a 500 million naira fund to compensate families of victims of Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Governor Seyi Makinde announced this while addressing relevant stakeholders at a security meeting held in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Correspondent Ayomiku Ajibola has details.
The meeting, which was convened by Governor Seyi Makinde, had in attendance the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of Southwest, Leye Oyebade, Garrison Commander 2 Div, Nigeria Army, Royal. The meeting, which was convened by Governor Seyi Makinde, had in attendance the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of Southwest, Leye Oyebade, Garrison Commander 2 Div, Nigeria Army, Royal Fathers, religious leaders, caretaker chairmen of all the local government areas of the state and local council development areas, among others.
Destruction should stop. The killings should stop. It will not take us to any language.
Assuring the meeting of the commitment of his administration to tackle the problem of insecurity in the state, Governor Seyi Makinde said he has directed that a sum of 500 million naira micro, small and medium enterprises fund be set up for youth in the state.
I want to reassure the good people of Oyo State that all criminal elements that engage in wanton destruction of lives and properties, they will be dealt with.
He reassured the people of the state that his administration will continue to protect the right of every resident of the state as contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in Ibadan. Ayomiku Ajibola, NTA News.
And the religious leaders have continued to call on Nigerian youths to embrace peace and give room for government to address their well-intended demands. They made this appeal known in Ibadan to stem the tide of violence being experienced in some parts of the country following the NSAS protest. Shola Waid has details.
A foremost clergy, Bishop Taiwo Adelakun, said it is imperative for youth to allow peace to reign in the country in order to ensure prosperity and the future of the country.
We understand their plight. And we know if things are going to go right with this nation, then Nigeria needs to reform. We are coming out of the pandemic by the grace of God. And instead of the protests being managed well, it's now going into insecurity of life and property.
In the same vein,
an Islamic cleric, said that all hands must be on deck to ensure that peace and oneness of the nation is assured.
We must realize that in Nigeria today, hoodlums intervention may disrupt a genuine cause. We must not allow ourselves to be used by these people.
It will be recalled that the past few days in the country have witnessed a series of protests by the youth to press some of their demands. In Ibadan, Shola Wahid, NTA News.
More on Nationwide with Noleen in Abuja.
Thank you so much, Adebola. No fewer than 2,800 persons have been captured to benefit from the first batch of the federal government grant for rural women in Zamfara State. Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, who launched the disbursement of the grant to the beneficiaries in Gusau, said the project is part of the initiatives of the Buhari-led administration geared towards lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by the year 2030. Haliru Muhammad Umar has more.
The Grant for Rural Women program was introduced by the federal government to sustain the social inclusion agenda of the Buhari-led administration, including the realization of the national aspiration of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. The program is designed as a one-off grant of 20,000 naira to each of the captured poorest and most vulnerable women in rural areas across the country. The Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, who flagged up the distribution of the cash to more than 2,800 beneficiaries under the first phase of the project in Zamfara State, said the program is expected to increase their access to financial capital required for economic activities, thereby improving their standard of living.
An bani naira 20,000. Alhamdulillah, mun gode wa Allah ɗari bisa ɗari. Abinci ne muka dafa a siyo. Insha Allah za su tasiri insha Allah. Kwarai da an ƙara ƙarfafa mana gwiwa. Allah ka sa mana hannu, Allah ka yarda da mu.
Zamfara State Governor, represented by Secretary to the State Government Bala Bello Maru, eulogized the unwavering commitment of President Muhammadu Buhari to providing succor to the common man in the country, saying the state government would continue to complement such wonderful initiatives for wider coverage. More than 130,000 women are currently benefiting from the federal government conditional cash transfer from some 6 local government areas of Zamfara State. In Gusau, Halir Muhammad Umar, NTA News.
Let's turn our attention to health now. Prevention, early detection of COVID-19 infection and prompt intervention are critical for the survival of cancer patients in the COVID-19 era. This explains why the 2020 Cancer Week in Nigeria is with the theme Cancer in Nigeria in the COVID-19 era and beyond. Basi Taipang reports.
Statistics show that cancer has become an emerging disease, making it a serious public health concern in Nigeria. Cancer contributes to an estimated 70,000 deaths annually. This expose is further compounded by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the health system.
Therefore, a well-thought-out strategy and strategic steps need to be taken to forestall the unacceptably growing trend.
Breast cancer has also remained the commonest cancer in Nigeria and is still on the increase. This therefore behoves on women to go for regular screening. The Minister for Women Affairs, Pauline Talin, who was represented, said the ministry will continue to create awareness for women and girls and work with all relevant bodies in the fight against cancer. Development partners also stress the need to collaborate with the federal government towards eliminating cervical cancer by the year 2030, in line with WHO declaration.
Cancer is preventable. At least 33% of all cancers can be prevented by avoiding the risk factors, which are behavioral and dietary.
A national training manual, data tools, and job aids for secondary prevention of cervical cancer in Nigeria was launched as part of the activities marking the 2020 International Cancer Week in Nigeria. Basi Taikban, NTA News.
Integrated vaccination of children in Sokoto State. Let's join Nura for this and other stories from our Sokoto studio. Hi, Nura.
Hi, Noleen, and welcome to Sokoto. An ongoing integrated vaccination of children below the age of 5 years in Sokoto State has so far reached the 80% mark. This came to the fore at the monthly review meeting of poliomyelitis and routine immunization in Sokoto. The lot of life reports.
The integrated vaccination comprised of immunization against poliomyelitis, measles, and the cerebrospinal meningitis for children from 0 to 5 years. The vaccination exercise has so far covered 85% of children expected to be immunized. The aim is not only to sustain the certification of Nigeria's polio-free nation, but also to keep the children safe against other childhood killer diseases. The integrated vaccination exercise is going on successfully in many parts of the state, though with few challenges in some areas.
Observations and our own challenges is about security. You know, we have some challenges, security challenges in some part of the state, and also very little non-compliance.
The task force on polio eradication and the improvement on routine immunization is working hard to overcome the few challenges being identified, especially rejection in some few areas. In Sokoto, Dalat Abdullahi, NTA News.
House of Representatives Committee on Road Maintenance Agency has pledged its support for more allocation of funds to the agency, judging from quality of works carried out in Kebbi State, to enable them cover more areas for movement of people and goods without stress. The committee members who monitor the activities of the agency in Kebbi State appealed to road users to cooperate with the workers while at work. The report. Federal Roads Maintenance Agency is saddled with the responsibility of maintaining federal roads by making them motorable for road users. In Kebbi State, the agency's intervention covered maintenance of federal highways, construction of line drains, embankments, washed away shoulders and culverts, as well as access roads through constituency projects. To ensure Nigerians earn value for money appropriated to the agency, the House of Representatives Committee on FEMA was in Kebbi State on oversight visit to the agency's interventions.
If FEMA is not there, there are certain things. Look what we saw now, the intervention they gave in that bridge. With it was cut, so many communities, even country is cut off from Arugungun, but immediately they use their initiative to rescue the situation, and now we are able to pass. So
the committee, led by Representative Aliudil, promised to work towards improved funding and staffing for FEMA, looking at the impact of its intervention to Nigerians. The Zonal Director of FEMA, Sokoto Zone Abdulrazak Olani, reiterated the readiness of the agency to do more if given the necessary support.
Starting from having adequate equipment so that
for the commencement of the River State Cassava Processing Factory to start test running its operations. The Commissioner of Agriculture, Fred Bakol, made this known when the governor granted them audience at Government House, Port Harcourt. Ogedinyekwe reports.
The initiative is in pursuance of the vision to diversify the state's economy through mechanized agriculture, provide food security and create jobs for the teeming youth of the state. Commissioner for Agriculture Fred Bako and the chairman of the board, Glory Chuku, said the management is in Government House to intimate the government on the status of the project and its attendant benefits to the state when operational.
Also generate foreign exchange for the state and enhance our GDP. In the medium term, the company has the option of also adding some products in the product line. And one of these products, with a little and modest investment, we can also add starch.
Governor Wike commended the board members of the company for a job well done.
That if you are being strengthened, if you are being encouraged, you may be one of the few companies in Nigeria that produce cassava flour, and with so many companies who are interested to buy in. Everybody will key in here, and that will lead to a lot of employment.
Managing Director of the company, Ruben Jensen, said the company has the capacity to process 75 metric tons of cassava tubers. He added that it will provide 150 direct jobs and 3,000 jobs for farmers. With the multiplier effects, 15,000 people would have some form of economic engagement. In Port Harcourt, Ogedinyekwere, NTA News.
Despite the security threat posed in parts of the country by hoodlums in the guise of End SARS protest, candidates of various political parties participating in the Saturday's local government election have been advised to properly educate their supporters on the need to follow the guidelines and conduct themselves peacefully during the election. Chairman Akwa Ibom State Independent Electoral Commission, Ikoiwak, gave this advice at a stakeholders meeting held in Uyo. Kelvin Samuel reports.
The stakeholders meeting was a platform to intimate participants and the general public on the level of preparation as well as the guidelines to follow during the elections. ACISEC Chairman Ikoiwak assured all political parties of the Commission's commitment to provide a level playing ground for all candidates, as he is committed to conduct free, fair and credible elections.
Everyone gathered here has a contribution to make for the success of the election.
I mean, the security agencies are promising to provide a conducive environment for free, fair, and credible elections.
Some party representatives commended the Commission for the level of preparations and transparency so far, while assuring that their candidates will follow the rules.
But today, sir, we are happy that you say they will collect results from polling unit to polling unit.
Sir, if any disturbances happen in any unit of Akwa Ibom State, please hold the outgoing chairman and the incoming chairman into account.
The meeting also attended to questions and answers with a vote of confidence passed on the ACISEC chairman by all party representatives to conduct the 2020 local government elections in the state. In Uyo, Kelvin Samuel, NTA News.
And that does it from Port Harcourt. Is back to Noleen for the rest of the news. Good evening.
Thank you so much, Dibabari. Environmental issues that poses a threat to human existence must to be tackled headlong on with international best practices. Chairman Senate Committee on Environment Ike Ikweremadu said this when the Minister of Environment appeared before the committee to defend its 2021 budget. John Yaku has details.
Environmental issues such as erosion, desertification, flood, carbon emission and soil pollution, among others, are some of the environmental challenges in Nigeria. Describing them as threat to human existence, the committee stressed the need to give them more serious attention in subsequent budgets.
Ministry and agencies need to also insist that the budgetary allocations need to improve. We'll do everything on our part to help, but need to start the fight. Create the awareness, hold seminars, summits, we'll be there to speak until Nigerians begin to listen, to know that environment is as important as health.
The minister, who blamed the effect of coronavirus on some of his projects in 2020 budget, is optimistic that they will be aggressively implemented in the 2021 budget if approved.
Do you know that now you can recycle plastic and turn them into pellets and other materials that you can produce interlocks, produce blocks, and construct real buildings, school buildings? This is all possible and is ongoing. We are doing that.
Director General, National OSP Detection and Response Agency, speaks on the Ogoni Cleanup project in the 2021 budget.
We as an agency of government have gone there to take samples in 6 of the sites handed over to us, and we have taken samples there. They are presently being analyzed in our laboratory.
The National Biosafety Management Agency, the National Environmental Standard Regulatory Agency, National Agency for the Great Green Wall, the Environmental Head Officers Registration Council of Nigeria, and the National Park Service, all under the ministry, also defended their budget. In Abuja, John Yaku, NTA News.
Government-owned media agencies must come up with innovations that will place them at par with their international high-class counterparts. This came up at the 2021 Budget Defense of Agencies under the Ministry of Information at the National Assembly. Abel-Ameh Sunday reports.
Broadcasting the world over is transiting from radio or TV box to mobile devices. In defense of its 2021 budget of about 7.2 billion naira, Executive Director Programs Wole Koka, acting on behalf of the Director General of the NTA, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, said NTA is working tirelessly to meet the expectations of the people in terms of new media, while ensuring that its presence is felt in all parts of the country.
We are presently on a lot of platforms. There's one we advertise every time, where you can watch us on the go. You know, wherever you are, even right here, if you have a strong internet, you can watch NTA.
The NTA management team also tabled before the committee its efforts on saving costs by engaging local satellite service provider.
Nigerian communication satellite, in compliance with the Executive Order 005. And the benefit of it, the Nigerian satellite works effectively and efficiently. And the advantage is that you pay in Naira equivalent, you pay in Naira as to the original Intersat where we pay in dollars.
On the recent NSAS protest in the country, National Film and Video Censors Board said it's doing a lot to stop movies that can trigger violence in the country.
Now we have spy police. There is a film that was supposed to be held. In the course of all these things, we have to put it down.
The committee wants the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria to justify its personnel costs with more productivity, while Voice of Nigeria clamored for a stop to proliferation of radio stations in the country.
They are chasing the same audience with us, and they can't reach where we are reaching, and they have our correspondents, and we report them on the multimedia we have today.
9 billion naira. It's a lot of money. As far as I'm concerned, we just have to be innovative, please.
As a nation, we still need a radio station, because when you are in your car, you are not able to use a mobile phone. You are not able to do anything, and most of us go into our car, we listen to radio there.
It's been proposed for 2021 fiscal.
News Agency of Nigeria also defended its 2,148 million naira proposed budgets. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
The Federal Executive Council has approved 2.9 billion naira for the printing of both sensitive and non-sensitive materials for various examinations in the country. Funds have also been approved for the enhancement of roads infrastructure in the Federal Capital Territory. These approvals were announced at a media briefing after the weekly meeting of the Council. Details of this shall come in our subsequent bulletin. All right, moving to judiciary now. High Court judges and the Federal Capital Territory courts are now to stop the recording of proceedings in longhand. This is as a result of the installation of voice and video recorders in the courts to hasten the process of litigation. Femi Okeu has details.
Already in existence in some jurisdictions in Nigeria is the e-filing system, which helps in facilitating the filing of cases before courts. But the major area of concern for years now has been how to reduce the burden of judges in having to record every word said in a court proceeding by hand. Information available to NTA News indicates that only the Lagos jurisdiction has been able to fairly tackle that problem. Now the FCT High Court has joined in installing recorders in the courts, a process which the Chief Judge of the FCT says should impact positively on justice dispensation.
We have taken the leverages of technology, and we are now making the system to be in keeping with international standard. So we now expect judges just to sit down, except where compellingly necessary, just to scribble some few words. But the issue of longhand, we're already gradually doing away with that.
An in-house training is currently on for judges and judicial staff who will help in the effective use of the proceedings recorders. Already, most of the courts have been renovated to accommodate these new devices. But what is most important is the expectation of Nigerians generally and the litigants in particular. They would be waiting to see how these recording devices would impact on the pace of justice system in the FCT. In Abuja, Femi Okewo, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday forwarded to the Senate for confirmation of the current INEC chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, for a second term in office. But what makes this nomination historic? INEC correspondent Miao Gide tells us more.
A man on a journey to make history and break the jinx in the INEC family. When confirmed by the Senate, Professor Mahmood Yakubu will be the first INEC chairman to serve twice in the political history of Nigeria. From Justice Ephraim Akpata, Dr. Abel-Ameh, Professor Maurice Iwu, to Professor Tairu Jiga, there was no renewal of tenure. For some, he is the smiling chair. Others describe him as the digital chairman. From Bauchi State and 58 years old, first-class honors in history from the Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, Masters in International Relations from the Cambridge University, PhD in Philosophy and History from the Oxford University at the age of 29, two-time Dean Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the Nigerian Defense Academy, and former Executive Secretary of TED Fund, and now the INEC chairman. As INEC chairman, he knows the terms and conditions of his assignment.
We are not a political party. We have no interest in candidates and parties. We are only interested in our processes and procedures.
One of the things I admire in him is that he's never intimidated. The man will just be smiling.
We in the committee were supporting him to do much better than what he did before, and I'm sure he's good enough for the job.
Pat on the back for Professor Mahmood Yakubu gives him another ticket to the #1 INEC seat. Here comes the favored child. Will be sitting on the chair for the second time with peel of smile, but beyond the beaming smile lies his plans to end the title as the digital INEC chairman.
Let me reassure each and every Nigerian that the Commission is committed to expediting the process leading to the deployment of electronic voting machines in elections in earnest.
This is the ballot paper.
And to achieve this, he promised not to engage fly-by-night contractors. As a professor of history, having his name written on the positive side of the political history of Nigeria is a target. And those that will write that history are on the wings, monitoring his activities. Second term in office expects second-to-none performance. Mie Ogidi, NTA News.
Now to sports news. Nigeria Women Premier League set for a new format in the new season. Details of this and more with Badia Dele on Sports Update. And stay safe. I am Noleen Abel-Ameh.